African governments wrestle with rising food prices, gas shortages, and other challenges in many parts of the continent. Community members and private charities are working harder than ever to help the poor and the vulnerable. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we hear how African women help to curb hunger and malnutrition in African societies. Hello, I'm Oriani Tangishaka, and here with me are my co-hosts, Semenyesha Koye and Ginny Niwa. Hello, ladies. Interesting stories about how communities, people in their communities can or are helping each other in this time of food shortages. I mean, it's going on around the world, but maybe specifically in our communities on the continent. What can be done?
Well, as you earlier, as you pointed out in the beginning, community organizations, local or international NGOs, they play a big role in assisting many communities, especially in countries, for example, Ethiopia, where there is a lot of conflict, natural disaster, climate change-driven displacement. They have a very crucial role. I remember, for example, not only, by the way, in conflict, even in areas where development has not reached, these communities help bring development and access to basic needs in these communities. And I remember, for example, a recent program I did on this association. It's called Dembari Leshiharar Lejoch. They provide access to education, access to clean water to eastern part of providing clean water, providing sanitary products and shelter. These organizations play a big role.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even in sub-Saharan, you have the Congo, where people rely more on NGOs than they can rely on the government. So, it's a big country with different issues. You have the conflicts on the east where, over there is disastrous, and, the NGOs is the savior almost. And then you have the life in the city where the land are scarce. So there's even so many, the population is so high that now they're dealing with, having to have access to land and to, food. So
that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. But one point we have to make also is that NGOs don't solve, or these organizations don't solve all kinds of problems, right? But in their capacity, they can help reach tens, hundreds of thousands of people.
That's why I always say the capacity that we have in the diaspora needs to kick in, because, people have to give back to their communities after they have come to very developed countries. And so I think the diaspora has a big role to play when there's disasters that happen and causing malnutrition, food shortages and things like that. So I think the diaspora has a very big role to play. Well, the United Nations World Food Program, which was established in 1963, says that the world right now is dealing with the worst global crisis in modern history. From the eruption of new conflicts and the escalating impacts of the climate crisis to soaring food and fuel costs, millions of people are being driven closer to starvation each day. The organization says conflict, displacement, and extreme weathers are main reasons of the crisis. 26 million people are facing severe hunger in the DRC, with 15.8 million people in the Sudan, and another 7.7 million people in South Sudan. In the Tigray region, Afar and Amhara region of Ethiopia, 5.5 million people are facing severe hunger due to armed conflicts. These are figures provided by the United Nations. So on today's program, we are looking at how some communities are stepping up to show us how food shortages is very serious, and their efforts to also inspire others in helping the needy.
That's right. Let's begin in Nigeria, where food banks are forced to cut back on the aid they were providing to people struggling to survive amid the country's worst cost of living crisis in decades. Angela Ukomadu of Reuters reports.
This warehouse is a crucial lifeline for some Nigerians amid a spiraling cost of living. But the Lagos Food Bank is not immune from the economic crisis. It's been forced to cut back on handouts to residents like Damilola Salami, as supplies from donors have fallen amid soaring inflation.
There's nothing for us to eat. We are hungry. Our children are out of school because of the hike in fees. Now the children are at home and there's no food. They should please have mercy. We are hungry.
Nigeria's economic turmoil has deepened since President Bola Tinubu rolled out bold but unpopular economic reforms after taking office last May. Inflation rose for the 14th straight month in February to above 30%, a new 28-year high. Last month, 7 people were killed in a crush at a Lagos food distribution center. Lagos Food Bank founder Michael Sumbola said his facility's major donor had cut supplies by 93%, citing the high cost of food.
But what is our capacity? What can we do?
He said they've had to reduce the number of people they can help.
Now we now do only women, now from age of 50, and you must so a lot of industries that have really cut down the number for us to be able to meet the capacity that we can do per time.
The food bank has also dialed back on quantities. It now provides families with enough supplies for a few days at a time, when once their parcels would have lasted 2 weeks. No Hunger Initiatives, a food bank serving mostly internally displaced people in the capital, Abuja, faces similar problems. A senior official there said the number of people seeking handouts had tripled since May 2023.
Thanks, Angela Komodu of Reuters, for that report. Now, Yedza Sama of Madagascar Food Bank Partnership Development Manager is here to tell us how private charities work together with local communities to offer some relief to people in dire need. She joins us from Antananarivo. Welcome, Yedza. Thank you so much for being with us.
Really, thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah. So yes, let's start by giving a general view of what it's like in Madagascar. What is the food insecurity like?
Okay, so in Madagascar, food insecurity is a significant cause driven by multiple factors. But the country faces natural disaster such as cyclones and droughts every year. And this climate disaster devastates crops and infrastructure, particularly in the south of Madagascar. So the Banque Alimentaire de Madagascar work particularly in the south, where over 1.5 million people are affected every year by severe drought.
Well, we know that Madagascar is an island. How are you working to combat food shortages caused by interruptions in food supply around the world?
Okay, so actually the Banque Alimentaire de Madagascar is a food bank which works specifically in rural areas, specifically in the south of Madagascar. And due to this climate change that I've talking about a few minutes ago, we try to work and combat, this food insecurity by working closely by where the foods are. So the foods are normally with smallholder farmers. So we try to work closely with smallholder farmers to trying to capture surplus of products from them and then redistribute the surplus in those in needs.
Right. So, working closely with these farmers, what are some key lessons learned from your work or to other upcoming charity organizations during this time?
So what we have learned with working with smallholder farmers is we are facing with many challenges because normally with these smallholder farmers we are supposed to capture the surplus of production from them, but most of the time they are also becoming our beneficiaries. So we need to have many strategy. So actually we are trying to make in place kind of strategy. For the waste loss. That means we are trying to put in place food transformation And then with this food transformation, we can stock the foods and then redistribute when the foods when we are a lack of foods for our beneficiaries. But
maybe a follow-up to what you are explaining. As you said, the small farmers can also be of beneficiaries, and the surplus might not even be enough to distribute to everybody. So are there any other donations you get from other areas, maybe, you know, international organizations?
Actually, we work with an international donator named Sushi Foundation, and we get from them every year around 120 tons of rice, but rice isn't enough. So due to the fact that our areas of intervention is really far from everything, far from supermarket, far from everything, I mean, because it's in a really rural area. So we working with financial donors. So with the with the grant that financial donor give to the Banque Alimentaire, we try to purchase sometimes when there is a lack of surplus of production in our area of intervention.
Well, thank you so much, Yadza. Stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you for that important insight. We're going to take a quick break now, and we're going to come back. We will continue this conversation discussing with Yadza from the Food Alimentaire of Madagascar. We will hear more on the efforts of what can be done to assist those in need during these tough global food shortages. Make sure you stay with us. In the meantime, as usual, we ask you to share your thoughts on this topic on our social media platforms. At VOA Africa, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Use the hashtag VOA Our Voices. Don't go anywhere.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Welcome back. You are tuned into Our Voices. We are looking at ways some communities on the continent are trying to manage the current food crisis. With us is Yeza from Madagascar's Food Bank, who is joining us from the capital, Antananarivo. Thank you so much, Yeza. So Madagascar, we mentioned earlier, is vulnerable to climate change impacts. And so in addition to the food bank, in addition to collecting surplus and redistributing that, do you also help to improve outputs of agricultural products with small-scale farmers, or maybe to increase productivity and efficiency?
Okay, so as I told before, we work closely in collaboration with smallholder farmers, collect surplus products that due to isolation didn't meet the market and would otherwise rot. But we have also a program with the women farmers. And in the country where access to lands is really challenging, we establish type of well, so different type of well in a field, divided in two plots for women, and for those women we provided training in vegetables gardening, tools and seeds, so they can improve their living standards, and also help the food bank by instilling the value of giving as around 30% or 40% of their harvest go to our hot meal school canteen programs. So for us, it's a kind of woman empowerment, but also go to through the resilience program.
Yadza, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of food security and insecurity on the continent, or maybe specifically in Madagascar? What do you project in the near future? Are things looking worse coming up, or are they getting better?
So normally we are getting better. So compared to 2 or 3 years ago, the continent will getting better, but due to climate change, we cannot totally rely on. So normally, as I told before, we are facing every year from cyclone. So in the area where we intervene, there are two kinds of climate change, the cyclone and the floods, but also the droughts every year. But compare with the situation for 2 years ago, the situation is a little bit better. But totally to say that it will be good or better, we cannot rely totally on.
Absolutely, but it's good to hear that it's getting better. Let's hear what some people in Nairobi say are the issues with food shortage and what can be done about it. We have George Ganga, Stefan Mukiri, Zablon Katomo, Abdi Kikirui in Your Voices segment.
I think we have this social security fund that the government normally give the elderly. The government should be able to remit that fund on time and to each and every homestead where the elderly live without fail. Also, I think the money is too little. I don't know whether they used to give 2,000 per month. I think by the economic status per now, 2,000 is very little. Yeah. Another thing, I think they should come up with a medical scheme where these people should go to the hospital. Certain age of them should go to the hospital and get treatment without paying any shillings.
I think rather than the old people, rather than like waiting to be old so that you can be given the money, you should at least, as the young generation, young people, we should be saving from as early as now, so that when you're at that age where you cannot work for to keep up like with food and all, you'll not need to be helped because you'll have started saving from when you're younger. So when you're old, you're okay and you're sorted. I think that will help.
I want to appreciate what the government is currently doing, because there is a plan for the elderly people where the government has enrolled the elderly persons to a scheme that they give them some amount on a monthly basis, which is transmitted through some bank. And that is a good thing that the government is doing.
To start a program of which monthly they keep them something to upkeep themselves. Because now as youths, whom we call ourselves a productive group, now you see we are jobless and there is nothing we'll take back home to keep them. So the government should take care of them by giving them something small, like 3,000 monthly, for them to be able to sustain themselves.
Thank you so much for the Nairobi residents. Yeza, let me come back to you. What do you say about the impact of such a food bank or other charity activities have in the local food system?
So I think not only in Madagascar, but around the world, the food bank play a crucial role to address the food insecurity, but to address also the food waste globally. So in the world, I mean, about a third of all food producer is today waste. So the food banks in general is a way to, how to say that, to face for this food insecurity all over the world.
Yeah,
I lose my...
Yeah, it's very tough.
That's it.
Well, everyday African women on the continent and in the diaspora are doing extraordinary things, and we highlight their contribution in our Women to Watch segment. Yedza, stay with us as we watch this particular one.
24-year-old Deborah Mbali runs Mbambande Elderly Home in a rural area of Malawi's capital, Lilongwe, hosting 85 elderly people, many from surrounding areas. They include 35 men and 50 women between the ages of 70 and 100.
We provide food for them, we clothe them, we give them basic needs that are needed in the life of an elderly person. And also, we take care of their medical bills.
The elderly people here take part in various activities to keep themselves physically fit and try to live life free from worries. Mbali started the foundation in 2020 as a social media platform, interviewing successful women and posting the interviews on Facebook. However, Mbali changed focus in 2022 after noticing the suffering elderly people in Malawi go through.
Elderly people are abused every day. They are stoned, they are killed, some they are burnt because of accusations of witchcraft.
Various local media here have long reported incidents of mob attacks and killings of elderly people suspected of practicing witchcraft. Government statistics show that witchcraft-related attacks and killings targeting elderly persons went up from 21 cases in 2022 to 29 last year. Among the targets was 89-year-old Biniwe Chabwira, whose children and relatives attacked him last year for allegedly having a hand in the death of his grandson.
When I tried to run away, some people grabbed me by the arms and legs, while others were beating me up on my head. I was severely bruised. One of my children produced a machete to cut my throat.
Chabwera was rescued by members of the community policing in his village. They took him to nearby police station where he was kept for 2 weeks before the Mbambande charity offered to accommodate him.
I am very comfortable and happy here. Food is available, and without my Mbambande, I could have died by now with hunger. And if I were home, people would have killed me over baseless accusations.
Besides providing food, the charity has constructed a house for neglected elderly people lacking decent houses, like Nastima Chikadwara, who is 81 years of age.
I'm now sleeping on the mattress. She built me a house powered by solar electricity. I'm so proud now, but the only problem I face is lack of food.
The charity, however, also welcomes elderly people who stay in their homes but come by to eat breakfast and lunch at the institution. In the meantime, the charity is planning a fundraising dinner on May 31 to raise money for the comfort and happiness of the neglected elderly females. Lamek Masina, VOA News, Lilongwe, Malawi.
Awesome, Bale. That's such an inspiring story of her. We were just sitting here saying, oh, I can do that, I can do that. Yedza, you know, this is an example of what you're doing, what someone else is doing in Malawi, and we really appreciate the work that you're doing on the continent to try to alleviate distress from the most vulnerable, and we really appreciate you being with us today.
Yeah, really appreciate too. So can I come back a little bit in the role that charitable organization or food banks do, especially I think in agricultural system, because as I told you before, our food bank is situated in rural areas. So for us, food banks and charitable organization, as I said before, play a crucial role in ensuring agricultural stability by, as we do, capturing the surplus produce from farmers' organization. But I can say also that additionally, by addressing food insecurity and promoting sustainable agriculture, food banks and other charitable organizations can also contribute to the overall stability and resilience of agricultural communities. Because, you know, our program help to stabilize the local food systems in our area, support also the farmers in improving their practice, and the most important, we are making a link with the market.
Yes.
So with the link to the market, we try to create an economic opportunities to these farmers.
I concur, definitely concur. Thank you so much, Yeza Matsmat, for joining us from Antananarivo. We'll have to end the conversation here. This is the end of our show. Thanks to our guest, Yeza Samat from Madagascar Food Bank. Be sure to watch our voices on our VOA website at voaafrica.com, where you can catch up on the latest episode on the world's top news stories. On behalf of my co-host and editor and production team, and everyone here at our Voice of America, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, cheers.